A sniper aimed at the presidential candidate, but the candidate quickly noticed the reflection on the other side. The sniper, using his brain, calculated the distance to the sniper and the wind speed at faster than light speed. At the moment the bullet was fired, he could have dodged, but deliberately chose to let it hit his shoulder, hoping to win more public votes. Despite his attempts to conceal it, the killer discovered he also possessed superpowers. A year earlier, the man was just an ordinary person with nothing, until a friend gave him a special pill that instantly unlocked 50% of his brain's potential. That evening, when his landlady came to collect rent, the man only saw a book in her hand, and all the memories from that book instantly flooded his mind. He even guessed that the woman was worried about her exams. The landlady was astonished, and the man immediately gave her professional tutoring. Within 5 minutes, the man solved all her problems. The landlady was extremely grateful and immediately waived 6 months' rent. Even more miraculously, he, who usually lacked inspiration, now wrote an entire novel in just 1 hour. He took his script to a publishing house, and the owner was so impressed that he immediately gave him $1 million. However, just as he was about to continue writing, he discovered that the effects of the medication had worn off, and the man couldn't bear to return to being an ordinary person. So he rushed to his brother-in-law's luxurious villa, only to find the man bruised and battered upon entering. It turned out the medication hadn't been approved by the Drug Administration, and the first pill he'd been given was stolen from his company. But if he wanted more, he'd have to be his butler for a day, preparing his food and drink. Faced with his brother-in-law's demands, the man reluctantly became his servant. However, when he returned, full of joy, he found the door inexplicably open, and his brother-in-law had been beaten up. Seeing him, the brother-in-law immediately called the police, but before they arrived, the man suddenly remembered his brother-in-law's pills, so he quickly put on gloves and started searching. Sure enough, he found $12 and a whole packet of pills hidden in the oven. To avoid being discovered by the police, he stuffed the pills into his pants. Fortunately, the police didn't search him when they arrived, only taking his statement at the police station. The next second, he appeared on the street with an unsteady gait, clearly the result of taking the pills. In a second, he planned his life. He wanted to become the president of the United States, but that required a huge amount of money, so he borrowed $100,000 from loan sharks. Then he went to work at the securities center, frantically calculating numbers in the stock market with his extraordinary brain. While everyone else was crying out in despair during the bear market, he grew his account from $100,000 to $2 million in just 1 week. The news caused a sensation in the financial world. He received invitations from 4 major institutions, which immediately attracted the attention of Wall Street financial tycoon Carl, who desperately needed such a financial genius to help him solve his problems. He wanted to take over the entire energy industry, but one company stood in the way of a monopoly. If the man could help him complete the acquisition, he would gain inexhaustible wealth. But little did Carl know, the man's ambition went far beyond that. He wanted to elevate this financial behemoth to power, thereby gaining the support of the entire Wall Street and ultimately securing the presidency of the United States. However, with his pills running low, to thoroughly investigate the truth behind the pills, he pulled out the accounts left by his brother-in-law and called each of the clients listed. To his dismay, everyone on the list was either dead or incapacitated. Clearly, the drug had extreme side effects. Just as he made his last call, the phone rang behind him. It seemed the pills had been exposed. While being chased by assassins, he luckily managed to hide in a taxi, temporarily saving his life. The effects of the drug wore off quickly, but just as he was about to take the next pill, he happened to run into the thug who had lent him money at exorbitant interest rates. The man, exhausted from not taking his medication, crawled all the way to his girlfriend's office. He begged her to retrieve the pills for him. She quickly arrived at the designated location and retrieved them, but on her way back, she discovered she was being followed. She immediately got out of the car and fled towards the park, pursued relentlessly by the assassin. Now, with her life hanging in the balance, she didn't care about side effects and immediately swallowed a pill. The next second, she understood why her boyfriend was so blind to the pills. In a few swift movements, she devised a perfect counterattack, nearly slitting the assassin's throat and successfully delivering the pills to her boyfriend. Seeing that the pills were dwindling, she spent a fortune acquiring a laboratory specializing in gynecological pills. Using the pills' superpowers, the man successfully helped his boss destroy a rival company, becoming a disabled figure who monopolized the energy industry. However, just as the man was basking in his pride, the loan shark from before came knocking, demanding to know the source of the drugs. The loan shark, while showing off his new discovery, that injections could prolong the drug's effects, was spitting on the man in a fit of rage, and the thug quickly collapsed in a pool of blood. 2 years later, the man had become a U.S. senator, just one step away from the presidency. As he basked in confidence at achieving his dream, his boss, Carl, suddenly appeared in his office. Carl realized that someone as talented as the man wouldn't remain subordinate and would eventually become his competitor. So, he acquired a pharmaceutical company. The company, which happened to be the research and development base for the pills, secretly shut down the man's private laboratory, promising him a continuous supply of pills in exchange for the man's unconditional service. Indeed, experience counts. However, to his utter surprise, the young man's threat was minimal, as he had already improved the pills, eliminating all side effects and making their effects permanent. Carl, upon hearing this, exclaimed it was impossible. But the man's subsequent performance completely overwhelmed him. Faced with the man's godlike presence, the dying Carl could only slink away. From then on, nothing in the world could stop him.